Theresa May's Brexit deal has been shot down in Parliament. So what happens now? Theresa May's withdrawal deal that she's been working on for 2 whole years has been rejected in Parliament by a margin of 432 to 202. It's a huge, huge margin, making it the largest defeat for any government in parliamentary history. I mean, she certainly doesn't do things by halves, does she? And the defeat, by the way, was so gigantic that the Labour Party called a vote of no confidence in the government, finally, after umming and ahhing about it for ages, which was held on Wednesday. And by the way, Jeremy Corbyn's just bluffing here because he's acting outraged by Theresa May's deal and her inability to pass it, but he's the stumbling block here because his party is so against Brexit, it's unbelievable. He's the stumbling block, and by the way, he doesn't have any solution to Brexit himself. He couldn't even answer in Parliament what his party's policy would be on Brexit if a general election was called as a result of his no confidence vote. He's technically still pro-Brexit, sort of. But his party isn't. And, his party wants another referendum if a general election is called. Corbyn has said himself that his party is going to have to decide party policy in the usual democratic ways, meaning, well, if the no confidence vote had worked out, it didn't, and a general election was called, Corbyn would probably have to campaign for a second referendum because that's what his party wants. So Corbyn's no angel here, and he's certainly got no real... he's certainly not able to attack Theresa May for not being able to move forward when he hasn't got any solid proposals himself. So the Conservative government did win that vote of no confidence that he put forward. The Theresa May got DUP, the Democratic Unionist Party's support, and all the Tories behind her. It's funny how Labour is able to better unite the Tory party than Theresa May is. She only won by a small margin, though. She only won the no confidence vote by a matter of 19 votes. And of course, the reason why that happened is the DUP and the Tories don't want Jeremy Corbyn to take power, especially during Brexit. So following the defeat of her withdrawal agreement, Theresa May said,
"We will therefore make a statement about the way forward and table an amendable motion by Monday. But I ask members on all sides of the House to listen to the British people who want this issue settled and to work with the government to do just that."
So Theresa May now has to look at new options. The last 2 years of negotiations have been a total waste of time. She's got to go straight back to the drawing board. And you might remember that she refused to talk about her plan B if her deal failed in the Commons. And of course, the reason she didn't want to talk about her plan B is because all along her intention was to talk to the other politicians in our own parliament and come up with a different deal that more people could support. And if she told them that that was her plan B, then she would have lost in that Commons vote on her withdrawal agreement by an even bigger margin because everybody would have wanted to sit down with her and renegotiate the deal after she said all along that she can't renegotiate it. Now that the deal has failed, she has to talk to all the other parties, not just the DUP. She's been talking to them all along. She's got to engage Labour, SNP, Greens, everybody. In fact, yes, she even did sit down with mental case Caroline Lucas from the Green Party, who of course just kept telling the Prime Minister that she should just go for a second referendum. Let's hope that doesn't happen. So on Monday, Theresa May has to come back with a new deal. In just a matter of days, she has to renegotiate an entire new deal with politicians across the board in our own country. And the EU have said that it's now down to the UK to come back to them and tell them what they want. Interestingly, the EU all this time has been saying we won't renegotiate, but let me let you into a secret. The EU doesn't want us to leave without a deal. They're terrified of it. They've been saying all along they don't want the UK to become more competitive than them, and if we leave without a deal, we'll be way more competitive than the EU. So let's face it, the EU will renegotiate this deal, but it's bad news for us Brexiteers because whatever deal is going to go to the EU is going to be terrible because it's going to be watered down by the Lib Dems, the Greens, and Labour. It's going to be completely watered down, and I don't expect to see any kind of meaningful Brexit. In short, May is making this whole process way more difficult than it needs to be. A historian came up with a really interesting idea, which was ensuring that the Queen got involved and dissolved Parliament until April. Wouldn't that be a grand idea? Because that would mean the politicians simply couldn't get involved when we do leave the EU on March the 29th. If we leave on March the 29th with no involvement from the politicians, we simply leave without a deal. That means we leave the European Union, we can trade on WTO rules, we become more competitive, and we get what we voted for. If Theresa May did that, I think a lot more people would be a lot more happy. We're not funded by the government, we don't have big sponsors, and we certainly don't have massive donors. If you'd like to help support our work, please go to rebeldonations.com/thebuck.